Your conversations are awkward and they're dying quickly because you're only asking yes or no questions. You may end up asking, did you enjoy the event? The answer is simply yes or no. Or you may ask, did you have a good day? The answer is yes. And then suddenly there's nowhere left to go. And then you kind of start to get that awkward silence that starts to creep in because not necessarily you're not uninteresting, let's be honest, but it's because the question did not invite more. The fix to this is open-ended questions, and open-ended questions start with who, what, when, where, how, and they're going to encourage real answers and help people open up more. So with that, even the right questions aren't always enough. I really want us to understand that. To keep the conversations from falling into the awkwardness, you need to have a reliable system. And when I say reliable system, I really just mean that you need to have something like some sort of basic principles that you end up following in your conversations. And that's where the comment, question, connection loop comes into place. And that's going to be a 3-step method that keeps the dialogue naturally moving forward. See, every networking event or conversation when you end up meeting someone for the first time, you notice the dialogue starts to stall a little bit after a brief answer. And the real problem isn't the length of the answer that they're giving you, it's truly just the missing subtle cues that allow you to really dig deeper. And according to Dan Brown's 3 cues framework, there are 3 moments that often go unnoticed. The first one is going to be loaded terms, then it's hesitation, and then difficult questions. When it comes to a loaded term, this is a word or phrase that carries more meaning than what's on the surface. For example, if someone were to say, let's just say they mention a bottleneck with operations, that single term hints at a story that's behind the scenes. Instead of moving on, you can ask them, what operations do you handle in your workflow? This simple follow-up opens doors for specifics, answers, questions, storytelling, anything like that, and keeps the conversation moving forward instead of ending on a vague note. The next thing is hesitation cues. That's another thing that we're gonna go over right now. When someone pauses or they stumble over the sentence or the words, maybe saying the project was complicated or today was good, it usually means that they're still searching for the right words to say. And rather than stepping in or rather than avoiding what they're saying and just moving on the conversation, try to follow up with a complicated how, or you took a while to say good, are you sure? What happened today? Dan Brown's guides highlight that asking a genuine question at this point often leads to more detailed and authentic responses, showing the other person that you're actually listening and encouraging to actually share more in the conversation. Finally, difficult questions. That's the third piece to this. Giving you a chance to really keep the conversation going, because let's be honest, we all get difficult questions in our conversation. So if someone asks you, why did you leave your last job? You don't have to necessarily ignore it or answer directly. Instead, you may reframe the question and ask, that's a great question. Or you may state something like, that's a great question. And then you gather your thoughts a little bit. And then next, you're going to figure out exactly what they're really trying to ask. Or you may end up following up with something like, are you curious about what motivated my move? Or trying to figure out what I learned from the job? This shifts the focus slightly and even gives them an opportunity to ask entirely different questions. Spotting these cues is only half the solution though, if I'm being honest with you. The next step is knowing how to respond in a way that keeps the conversation moving forward and also is going to build that real connection between you and the person that you're talking to. And the simple thing to that is a reliable loop, and that's what Dan speaks about, and it's going to be the 3-step loop. Now, let's get into that 3-step loop that can bring your most boring, awkward conversations back to life from the dead. So with the 3-step loop, it's going to be comment, question, and connection. A lot of people end up rushing straight into the connections, or the questions when it comes to a conversation because they feel a little awkward or nervous about what they're talking about, or maybe even who they're talking to. But this often is going to skip the power of observation, which we spoke about in one of our most previous videos, so make sure you go check it out in the series. But according to Dan Brown's recommendations, reflecting on what you hear and also validating it before probing further in the conversation often is going to help you open up a more genuine dialogue with the person that you're talking to. So this is how the loop works. Let's imagine for a second that I'm a recruiter and you're the student that's talking to me. All right. So you and I should always begin with a comment that actually proves that we're listening to each other. For example, a comment that I've gotten numerous times in the past, like way too many to count, is a student will come up to me and they would say something like, I don't really have experience. I just have class projects, and also I'm a part of a couple of campus clubs. And I may end up responding, I totally get that. Experience doesn't always have to be a job title. It doesn't have to be a job experience, but what you build up still counts. And this is true. Like, I'm a huge advocate for leveraging your products as experience. And matter of fact, I was just in career workshop earlier today, and I was telling people how I have more projects on my resume than jobs because they perform better for myself in interviews. That's just how it works out for myself. So giving a reflection such as the one I end up just saying will often show the person that you're talking to that, one, you care, you have active listening skills, you're paying attention, all that type of stuff. But it shows you caught both ends of the content, right? So the projects, the clubs, and also the feeling of self-doubt. Next, I can end up following with an open-ended question, which we spoke about in our last video. So important. Which project or role gave you the most results that you're proud of? And then can you explain something or quantify anything that happened while you were with that role, or maybe even the project that you were doing? And then lastly, the last part of this 3-step loop that you really want to do is connect. That's what you want to do. In this case, we want to make sure that we're making a connection for the recruiter to view our own perspective or view our perspective on what we've been able to accomplish. For example, when I review a lot of people that are early in their career, a lot of college students' resumes, the people will often come to me and I look at it and I try to reframe what they have on their resume with their projects and their classes. And so I noticed that the students that are able to reframe the projects that have like quick result bullets, that, for example, you may have, I led X amount team, like I have 5 people on my team, or I increased the signups by, let's just say 30%. Those type of people stand out immediately. Now, you also may be wondering, how does this help build connection? But this helps build connection because it allows the recruiter to truly see your accomplishments and also how you can fit into their team and ecosystem. So with this loops cadence, it's going to be a well-placed comment. Again, it's going to be a good question, and also making sure that you're having open-ended questions and making sure that you're able to connect with the other person. And this is going to draw out the specifics of the conversation and have a genuine connection with somebody to make sure that you don't have those awkward conversations. Now, as I start to wrap up here, I want us to understand mastering conversations isn't all about having all the right answers. Like, you're not going to have that at all. But it's truly about having and finding and guiding the flow of the conversations with intention. You want to use the comment, question, connection loop that we just spoke about, and it's going to give you a clear structure to follow. Again, you want to have some sort of system, right? Some sort of principles that you follow with your conversations. So after you finish watching this video, this is what I want you to do. I want you to try to take your next interaction and make a thoughtful comment, ask an open-ended question, and then build a response, build a connection, a flow, all of that type of stuff that's going to allow you to have a great flowing conversation with a recruiter, maybe somebody that you meet at a networking event, or maybe even a future friend. I don't know. But you're going to notice how much more comfortable you are and also how much more engaging the conversation is. Make sure you stay in tune for the next video in this series. I promise you all, you're not going to want to miss it. We're going to build on top of what we just spoke about today. I'll see you in the next one.